Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to TimeToPlay.com's Empower Half Hour. My name is Doreen Guma. I'm the founder of the Time to Play Foundation, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation with the mission and purpose to enrich the lives of others through programs, public awareness outreach activities, events, and learning opportunities that further the concept of enjoying life. And I'm really excited about this program today. On the line with me today, we have Anthony and Dina Isola, and they have two organizations, ATI Investments and Real Smartica, which is a not-for-profit education for people so that they can have money. So this is Have Money Week, and we are going to be talking about 6 people you shouldn't take money advice from. And Dina and I have been talking about this particular topic for a couple of months. So I'm going to have them tell you a little bit about their background because they're really impressive people. Plus, and not to diss financial planners, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are bad apples, and there's a lot of people out there that are good apples. So I'm clarifying that. But these people have the unbelievable best interest in mind to help people become financially stable and secure and to do the right things so that they can have a better life, which is why they're part of the Council of Professional Resources on the Time to Play Foundation team. So good morning, guys. How are you this day?
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Well, this is Have Money Week, so there's really nobody better I could think of to have come on with us. So give everybody a little bit of a background about you guys because it's pretty good. It's pretty extensive.
Thank you. Well, Tony and I, we're a husband and wife team, and we have 2 businesses, ATI Investment Consulting, which is a fee-only fiduciary registered investment advisor firm. So we're not brokers. We're not paid by anybody other than the people that we give advice to, and that really does color what advice you're getting because there's no conflict of interest with us. So we intentionally set our business up that way. And we have another business, which actually is not non-for-profit, but it is an education business. It's Real Smartica. It's the sister company, and it's about basically helping families, whether it's young people or older people, get empowered so that they can make intelligent financial decisions because there's a lot of conflicting information out there and a lot of information that is, people are trying to steer you in a certain direction to benefit them, not you. And this way you can be your best advocate if you're very educated. So that was kind of the premise behind Real Smartica. And Tony and I are very committed to education. Tony's a teacher, and my background is in financial communications. And so we use this to basically educate others and hope that they can be in a better place. So today what we want
and this is really a very important thing. When my husband and I first got married, we did meet with a financial planner. And that financial planner was a salesperson for insurance and other things. And, oh, my gosh, and Dina and I had talked about this, like so many years had passed, and the buyout for this policy, a whole life policy that we were paying was like $3,000 or something total. And I think we were paying like $200 a month for this really small life insurance policy. But what Dina's saying, and this is something to consider if you're choosing a person to help you with financial decisions, and we're going to talk about 6 people you shouldn't take money advice from. So I'm not sure if this is one of the 6 because we're going to get to that. But this gentleman, and I've learned since, you live, you learn. It's, kind of unfortunately sometimes a part of things, but that they were encouraged to sell certain products, this financial planner that we had met with, and that was one of the products. And they do benefit from the sales of that particular product. This is what Dina was saying before, so just to clarify, it's always the buyer beware thing. So I appreciate that, Dina. That was definitely...
I'm going to give a quick analogy. When I was in college, I took a film class, right? And I thought it was a pretty cool thing to take. And I remember, I'm going to get to watch movies. And I remember the professor saying, hey, we are going to be dissecting these movies, and you need to pay attention to why the movie was made and whose bias is in that movie. So, for example, a movie like The Breakfast Club, the bias is adults are idiots, they're unfair, they don't understand kids. That's the bias, right? And it's the same thing when you're dealing with anybody in business, whether it's a financial planner, whether it's your auto mechanic, whoever you're dealing with, know where their bias is coming from. And the reason why we set ATI up specifically as a fiduciary, which means we are in charge with looking out for your best interests, and we have to put our interests subordinate to the client, is so that they can never question whether or not we were recommending something because it was better for us. It's never better for us. It's always what's best for the client. And we believe strongly that whenever you're dealing with a professional that is getting a commission, that is getting paid to recommend a product, there is a conflict of interest. Plain and simple, they're going to get paid more money to recommend A over B, which maybe doesn't carry a commission. That's why we refuse any commissions. We will never accept any commissions. We strictly work for the client. And we strongly believe in that model, whether you do it with us or somebody else. And you have to be very careful because, professionals can be what's called a fee-based, and that means that they can kind of straddle both worlds. They can take a commission and they charge a fee. And it's very important to be familiar with that terminology if you want to advocate for yourself.
That's brilliant, and thank you. Very important information.
Oh, no, you're very
because right. And what you said before is there is so much information out there. It's very hard to decipher things, and things look really good when they tell you. That's kind of marketing. There's a lot of hidden stuff that we don't know, especially when we're doing money borrowing or lines of credit or, purchasing a life insurance policy. So thank you. I appreciate that. So let's get started on this really interesting topic of 6 people you shouldn't take money advice from. So just as a overview, introduction, how did you even come up with this? Why did you choose 6? And what do you kind of mean in general about you shouldn't take money advice from kind of thing? It's just kind of a funny title,
Yeah, well, I came up with it because it's just kind of those people represent, thousands of different, people that you'll come across and the reasons they'll give you to make your investments. And I just used those 6 people because they were like the most egregious people that was, kind of totally out of control. But quite frankly, I would say, 80% of financial advisors would fall under that category in some form or another. So unfortunately, it really is a small group of people that you can really trust in this business. Even, I have my CFP and Certified Financial Planner is, that's really probably, one of the highest standards you look for in someone to make a plan for yourself. And what we found, looking at our, the CFPs, for instance, we got a referral from somebody from the CFP website, and basically they just type in a zip code and they look for someone within the area, and it was kind of good. We got one, but I typed in, our zip code, and it's within 5 or 10 miles. I was the only CFP on that list that was fee only. So it is so difficult for the individual to actually find a person that really is going to look out for their best interest, because people don't realize that. You can go to a CFP, and the CFP can collect a commission as long as they tell the client. So, what you said before, unfortunately, it's not half and half. It is greatly, weighed toward the other way, that the average person you come into contact with is most likely going to be commission-based and trying to sell you something, and that creates enormous conflicts of interest. So that's kind of why I wrote the article, because there's all kinds of different ways, people can mess with you.
Understood. So do me a favor, just to re-clarify, what are the different letters that follow financial planners in general, and what is the benefit of a CFP in comparison to the other things, and what is the training or education?
Okay. That's a really good question, and the reason why people will say, you really want to look for a CFP, and actually, there's actually been a bunch of commercials on TV. It's really, they're trying to get that message out there, and the reason why is, to become a CFP, you have to have a number of things. You have to have a certain amount of work experience. You have to take courses. Like I had to take, 5 college courses in order to qualify for the CFP test. Now, the CFP test is a whole day affair, which takes 3 or 4 months to prepare for, and then you have to pass that. You have to have, a completely clean record of ethics. Again, selling people stuff doesn't mean you broke the law. So that's why I'm trying to tell you, you could be a CFP, but there is kind of that borderline there. But the point is, there's probably a higher probability of a person being more on the level if they are a CFP. Every 2 years, you have to have 30 hours of continuing education. So, unfortunately, in the financial business, it's very misleading because there are all kinds of these little acronyms. But the most important would be, a CFP or a CFA, a Certified Financial Analyst. Again, it's a very rigorous program. But other than those two, there's a lot of, cookie cutter things that people have come up with, and you go to a course for one day, and next thing you know, you're, certified senior specialist or certified this or certified that. You're not really certified in anything. It's certified that you paid money to get these 3 initials. So, yeah, for your audience, the best, if you're looking for someone to talk to you, hopefully in the way that would be in your best interest, the CFP designation is, the way to go. And that's why I went and got it. I didn't have to get it, but I figured, it's the best thing to do.
I appreciate that. And you know what? This is something to look out for in all situations as well. I mean, we have to be our most best advocate, and we have to do research on any provider, whether it's a health provider or it's anything, really. I actually covered that in our book, If I Knew Then What I Know Now. If you're interested in looking at that, go on timetoplay.com and you can see. But I did actually cover that in there. In the real world, I learned after I did leave working in a hospital, I'm a board-certified healthcare executive, I really did learn that, anybody could put anything on a business card out here. You don't have to be really, you could just, you just make a business card. You can go to like Vistaprint or hopefully a local person to support local business. But you can put anything on a business card. Nobody's checking. And that's scary.
And you can always look up, if you are working with a financial professional, you can always check their credentials on the FINRA site, which will let you see if they have any issues against them, any ethical problems, any arrest record, anything that's ever gone on. You can see whether or not the person you're working with has had to pay any fines, which, again, you should know who you're working with. Because here's the thing, and this is where it gets a little tricky. If somebody is really good at sales, they're really likable. And we respond to likable people, and they can seem like they care, and they can seem like they're honest, and they can seem like a good person, and they might be. They might be a good person, but they might not be actually that well informed. They may just be kind of salespeople, but not necessarily students of the market. And if you have a complicated, financial situation, or you really need guidance, you want somebody who knows what they're looking at, not just somebody who's nice and kind and selling you something and making you feel good about yourself. It's too important. This is not a refrigerator that if they sell you the wrong one, no big deal. Your loss is limited to, $1,000 or whatever you paid on the refrigerator. This is your kid's college fund. This is your retirement fund.
Right.
So it's really important that you know who you're working with. It's so incredibly important that you know that. And one of the 6 people that Tony mentioned in his blog on this topic was, don't go after somebody who's obviously dishonest, like the Bernie Madoffs of the world, right? And it seems like an obvious thing, right? So how did this guy get...
I was going to say about that. Yes. Wait, I need to interrupt you a second because I'm going to forget. the website that we could check, you said FINRA. Could you please one out in case somebody wants to go there?
It's F like Frank, I like investment, N like Nancy, R like Rose, A like Apple. FINRA.
Perfect.
Yeah,
.com, .org.
Yeah, you want to go. You'll go to FINRA.org, and there's a place that says broker check. So if you have a financial salesperson that sold you something, you could simply type in their name or their firm's name and a whole list of any type of grievances against them or any types of problems like they've had in the past and settlements. And we've done that with plenty of people, and you'll find some pretty interesting things on that broker check. But unfortunately, just recently now, because of a lot of lobbying effort, now it has to be on many of these. They have to put the broker check on the company's website, but there's still no direct link to the brokers that work for the firm. So you'll have to continue and type in their name and put in the firm. But once you do that, you'll get a full report on who, if you're dealing with someone that is collecting commissions on that person. And it might come up. Again, there's no law against selling you things, but there are laws against misleading you, and people will file grievances, and all that stuff will be on there. If they've been fired before, that'll be on there. If they've had to pay fines, that'll be on there. So you might want to think twice if your broker has this whole list of grievances against them.
We once checked for someone, and the broker had a concealed weapon charge. And they had no idea that they were working with somebody who had broken the law.
Yeah,
and so if they've broken the law in any capacity, you really have to ask yourself, do I trust them with my money?
Right.
So let's go back to the Bernie Madoff type of person, of course.
Sure.
If it's too good to be true, then it probably is, as we know. But I actually know an organization that invested a significant amount of money. I don't even know that they checked with their people before they did it, and lost a ton of money, which really hurt the organization significantly. So how do you know? How do you know a person is a Bernie Madoff kind of person?
How you know? You want to know a very simple way how you know? It's quite easy, actually. Investing is all about probabilities. There is absolutely nothing guaranteed in investing unless, obviously, you're putting your money in a bank and you're under the insurance level and you get a CD. Okay. But anyone ever makes you a promise about investment returns in a guaranteed investment returns in an investment product that has some risk in it, you run away from those people. That's how you know, and that's exactly what he did. He made these ridiculous promises about how every year he would gain 10% no matter what the market did, and that there were people out there who warned about him years before. But people just listened to what they wanted to hear. But for your listeners, that's how you know. If someone promises you a guaranteed investment return, there's going to be a problem.
If it sounds too good to be true,
it's that simple.
It is, and
that's simple.
And the other thing, Doreen, is that he was what's called the custodian, which means he also held the assets. So he was one generating the statement.
Right,
so there was no transparency. Because, if he was a broker that had the assets being held at, Schwab or Fidelity or TD America, whatever, Ameritrade, that client would be getting a statement from those institutions in addition to him. And they would say, well, wait a minute, he's saying I have $2 million, but this statement says I have $100,000.
Right.
So there was no transparency. You couldn't log on and check your account or anything like that. And that is a huge warning flag. There needs to be what's separation of church and state or some sort of balance. Whoever's managing the money shouldn't be in possession of the assets.
Right.
That's brilliant information. So who is the next group of people that we need to be wary of?
I think a real problem is when people invest, they mix politics with investing because, a lot of politics is emotional, and when you put emotions with money, bad things happen. And I'll just give you a perfect example of what happened these past years. I don't really care what people believe in their politics. It's not my business. But, President Obama got elected, and, hey, he's a communist. The Federal Reserve is printing money. There's going to be hyperinflation. Bury your money in the yard, buy guns, whatever. Well, what happened? Go buy gold, right? That's the only safe haven. Well, over the past few years, the stock market has made an unprecedented rally, a historical rally. Okay, gold has collapsed 30%. So if you followed a political pundit who gave you that advice, you got absolutely hammered, creamed in a bull market that you should never lose money in. So think about it. You missed the opportunity of, doubling your money in the stock market. Not only did you not double your money, but you lost 30% of your money. And, all of those that they said based on their political views turned out to be, you couldn't have been more wrong. There is no inflation. There is the stock market went up. So, and I'm not saying it has anything to do with President Obama. It doesn't. The economy just recovered. But people take advantage. They did the same thing when, President Bush got elected a few years ago. Oh, he's a fascist. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. What happened? The market doubled. So never, ever, ever, mix your politics. Don't get your investment advice, from Fox News or something. It's just, it's not going to help you. Use that for what it is. It's entertainment value. It's really going to mess you up with your investing.
Well, I appreciate the entertainment value. We don't want to play entertainment with our life savings. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is following the crowd, which is a really hard thing to do because everyone kind of gets swept up in what the crowd is doing. And usually what separates good investors from poor investors is the good investor has the ability to do what is needed, which oftentimes kind of hurts. When stocks are getting killed and things are plummeting and the smart thing to do is to buy, it doesn't feel very good. It's really hard to do. It's much easier to panic with the masses and sell and run out the door, but that's actually the worst thing you can do. So trying not to get caught up in the momentum of crowd frenzy is just it's not helpful to your portfolio.
Yeah. And again, another tip, for your listeners is usually if it feels good in investing, what you're doing, it's usually wrong. That's how you know. The things that you do that are going to usually end up making you money are usually very uncomfortable decisions. And the things, if it makes you comfortable, it means everyone else is doing it. And that usually leads to a lot of problems, which, I could go on forever about, what that stuff. But that's another simple tip, right? If you're very comfortable doing it, think twice.
I appreciate that.
And we don't mean like a plan.
That's something
that everyone's buying internet stocks, everyone's buying real estate stocks. Fine, that didn't work out too well. Everyone's selling their portfolios in 2009 at the market bottom. All of those things that made you feel good, right? Get me out or get me in. 2 problems. You should never do that. Those 2.
Well,
right?
I wanted to emphasize the comfort level. You said something very interesting. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't a little bit to keep that in mind. So if it's making you nervous, years ago, oh my gosh, we had a person who had said, this stock is blah, 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 and we invested and it went right down. So you're 100% right, not necessarily, of course, following those crowds. And that also, if you go back into history, is what crashes the markets. Everybody's like, oh, they said, who's they? Make it, they also had a lot of people get really rich when they said. So, it's something to be wary of. Okay, number 4.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we up to 4 or are we up to 5? I'm confused.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, following the crowd was 3. Yeah.
So we're up to extreme mood swings, number 4.
Good. Okay.
It's hard. Investing is difficult because it becomes emotional, and whenever something becomes emotional, it's very hard to do the right thing. So there's the problem. That's why most people really do need to work with somebody because it's easier to be less emotional about things and do what needs to be done when it's not your money.
Right.
So, getting caught up in the emotional tidal wave of investing is a really good way to blow your portfolio up. Because, I liken it to firefighting. You and I, we're not firefighters. And if we were in a building that caught fire, you would panic, I would panic. Our instinct would be to run out of the building because we're not equipped to handle the fire, right? And investing is like that. If you're not equipped to handle what's going on with the markets, you're going to do something that doesn't really help, You're going to run away, and that's not really helpful. Instead of grabbing a hose and trying to put it out or saving somebody, you don't have the wherewithal to do it. It's the same thing.
Understood. Next.
Your number 5 is leverage and arrogance. You want to take that one?
Yeah, well, again, investing isn't a science. It's more of an art. And anyone who has some sort of formula, like a math formula that says, 1 + 1 = 2, and that's going to make you a lot of money, again, it's not going to work, because investing is about really unpredictable human emotion and humans acting in irrational ways, and that's just completely unpredictable. So if you think you can tell me what's going to happen today or tomorrow in the stock market, you're out of your mind, because you're basing decisions on variables you can't control. And another thing to get you into trouble is when you borrow money. Think about it. If you borrow money, you put 10% down on something, right? You borrow 90%, and that market moves 10% against you. You're wiped out. You're bankrupt. That's what happened with their homes, right? If you have no money down and you borrow everything, the market goes down 10%. Now what do you do? So leverage, borrowing money for investing is a very dangerous concept unless you really know what you're doing. And a lot of people who people thought they knew what they were doing, it usually blows up eventually. So again, you never buy stock on margin. That's a really, really dangerous game to play.
No, I appreciate that. And then we also have to consider expenses too. Like, I know this is not just specific to Long Island, but Suffolk County, we had talked about this yesterday in our Business Success radio podcast, but Suffolk County is one of the most expensive places to live, and 1 in 35 homes currently are in foreclosure here. It's very important to look at all of this stuff, and would a person in your capacity be able to help a person make the right decisions as far as, a moving or something also? Would you be also able to help? That just triggered when you were speaking of the homeowners and stuff like that, my question. But is that something that you would also be able to help a client with?
And, you look at your budget and you look at the money you're bringing in, and if your housing costs are more than 30% or so of total cost, you're nature. There's just kind of some numbers that you kind of use as a benchmark. And, again, if 70% of your money is going to pay your mortgage and your taxes, well, you know what? You're not going to have too much leeway if something bad happens. And what's going to happen is, since you have no money, you're going to have to borrow money on your credit card, right, to pay those unexpected things. And next thing you know, you're going to owe all this money at 20 or 30%. That's how people go bankrupt. So, yeah.
Well, and this is interesting because this was guidance that some people had provided to other people. And again, probably one of the people you don't listen to. Sometimes people just want to make a sale, and they're not really looking out for the best interest of the person.
Think about, the average mortgage broker is paid on how much money is borrowed by the consumer. So what do you think they're going to encourage you to do, right? What do they care? After, the bank now takes that loan and they sell it. So, that's what caused this whole crisis, because people borrowed money they couldn't afford, and the banks did not have to hold those mortgages. So it was kind of a no-risk deal, right? Here you go, sell it. They knew those people were going to default in a year or two, but what did they care? They were going to make their money, and they took that loan and sold it to some other sucker. So that's how the game was played, and that's why people, got very angry. But people don't know the rules of the game. That's really the problem.
And they don't pay attention to the bias that other person brings to the table. If the mortgage broker is paid based on how much you borrow.
Right.
Their bias is to
Right.
push you to
Exactly.
borrow as much as you possibly can,
Right.
which is not in your best
Common
interest.
sense, right?
You see?
So don't
That's
do it.
getting back to my film analogy,
Right.
why it's really
Right.
important to know, like, whose
Right.
lens are you seeing this
Right.
through, yours or someone
Yeah.
else's?
Commissions are usually a pretty bad idea
Yeah.
dealing with your finances.
It just is.
That's a very, very good point. And it puts things in perspective. The best deals and stuff like that. Like there's a little bit more to everything than that, and I appreciate that. And last but not least, we have number 6.
This was my personal favorite because it's the most obvious,
Yeah.
and
Ridiculous.
it's celebrity endorsements. I mean, it just cracks us up when you see an actor who guess got some sweet deal from a financial company to be the front person, and they have more money than God, and so if somebody swindles a bit of their money, they're probably not even going to feel it. It's like a rounding error, but for you and me, it's not so much. They don't really, they're not telling you the full story. These endorsements are usually for the brokerage model where there's heavy commissions involved, heavy fees involved. They don't legally have to look out for your best interest, but there's this trusted actor or somebody famous that you like and whose work you admire, and they seem like a nice guy. They always seem like a nice guy as they, basically tell you to do something that, isn't really in your best interest.
I appreciate that. Well, that does, make a lot of sense, everything that you guys said. And that does bring us to our half hour. As cool as that is, you guys did, even with all our chit-chatting, cover everything. So for closing remarks, give a summary of what people should do to make the wise decision and make the best move for themselves.
Yeah, I think you have to, go to somebody who's compensated in a way that's not going to conflict with your goals. Like I said, there's the CFP website. It actually is really good because it gives a whole list of people who have these qualifications, and also it gives you a set of questions that you could ask going into the meetings. And one of the biggest questions that you need to ask, besides the experience, besides all the degrees and that stuff, is how are you being compensated? And that answer is going to tell you really what the deal is. So as long as you know that, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And if there's any pause or hesitation, you know that person is getting, basically a kickback from somebody else. And I don't know if that's what you want. That's just my opinion.
I mean, the two questions I would ask, are you a fiduciary, which is literally a yes or no?
Right.
And if it's anything other than that,
right, but then
it's
again,
a no.
How are you compensated?
And how are you compensated?
But it's basically the same.
Yeah.
Because if you're, a fiduciary,
right.
you're basically going to say, I received no money from anyone else except my client. And like I said, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, because nothing in life is 100%, but you're increasing your odds tremendously by asking questions like that.
And
do you see...
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dina.
I was saying, don't take advice from anybody like family, friends who don't really understand your
right.
complete financial
right.
picture. What's good for one person,
people on TV, what do they know about you?
It
ridiculous.
Doesn't necessarily fit for you.
And the time frame. If someone on TV might be saying buy this stock, and because they think it's going to go up over 2 months or whatever they think, and what does that have to do with you if you're planning, if you're a long-term investor? So you should never pay attention to what anybody says on TV, because they have not, done an exhaustive data check of your personal finance situation.
And that's so funny, because I was going to say about family and, not to necessarily take advice from people close to you or business, like, people you work with, whatever. You really do need what Anthony just said, somebody that knows you specific and all your details, which you're not necessarily going to share with, those other people. And that's really very important. So with that, I really appreciate you guys' time today. And I think that this was very worthwhile. Again, I appreciate anybody that was listening as well. Please do pass this along to anybody else you think would be helped by this information. And the Empower Half Hour is made possible by the Time to Play Foundation. It is a 501c3 not-for-profit corporation with the mission and purpose to enrich the lives of others through programs, public awareness, outreach activities, events, and learning opportunities that further the concept of enjoying life. And the Empower Half Hour is exactly just what those, this is one of those opportunities. To be able to give somebody information that they can listen to at any time and on demand, and to be able to make better choices so they can have a better life and be happy, healthy, have money, work-life balance, which is the Time to Play philosophy. Please do go check out timetoplay.com for articles. Dina and Anthony just posted the information that you heard today. If you please to go and listen to, you could read that, read other things that will empower you. And guys, before we disconnect here, could you just put out the best way, although of course through Time to Play, people can contact you, but how else could they contact you?
Oh, sure. Our website is AT, like Tom, I, investment.com. And it's also realsmartica.com, or you could call us at 631-675-1420.
Excellent. The office here is 631-331-2675. We'd love to hear from you. We will always answer or email info@timetoplay.com. And I thank everybody for their time. I hope somebody learned something. And it's time to enjoy life.
Thanks for having us, Doreen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.